Hi friends, thank you for joining us for another episode of Hello APGD, a neighborhood podcast about the Audubon Park Garden District in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Michael Lothrop, and today we'll be speaking with Brent Hernandez of the Redlight Brew Pub, located at 2810 Corinne Drive. You can also visit them on Facebook and Instagram at Redlight. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, or if you'd like to be a sponsor, please feel free to message me on Instagram at HelloAPGDPod. Thank you for listening. This episode is brought to you in part by Trevor Brown, Audubon Park resident and trusted Central Florida realtor with Fannie Hillman and Associates, proudly serving their clients for over 40 years. For listings, market trends, helpful home buyer and seller tips, email directly to Trevor at fanniehillman.com or find him on Instagram at Trevor Brown Realtor. And with me today is Brent Hernandez of Redlight Beer Parlor. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. So is it still Redlight Beer Parlor? I know that you have kind of evolved over the years.
Yeah, I think we're leaning toward, I think we're going to call ourselves a brew pub now. Yeah, Redlight Brew Pub.
So explain the brew pub part. Obviously, you've added brewing and soon food. So does that encompass both of those things?
It does.
Okay.
Yes. So we called ourselves a beer parlor because we didn't really feel like we were just a bar, years and years ago. Mm-hmm. And then I think we were kind of going by bar and brewery there for a minute.
Sure.
With one of our logos. So we being Jess Tantalo and I, who will be our chef, or is our chef, technically.
Yeah.
Sat down and we're really trying to find how to rebrand that kind of catchphrase, I guess.
Sure.
Or subtitle.
We all need labels so that we understand things.
Yes, a label, I guess.
Yeah. We got to label ourselves as a thing.
So we came up with a bunch of different ideas and we couldn't really, decide on something, and kind of hit us like, oh, well, it's kind of this.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh yeah, that's simple. That makes sense.
And I've heard gastropub thrown around too, but maybe less people are knowledgeable of what that is. So it's
I kind of think that we would be the definition of a gastropub.
Sure.
But I kind of feel like that name's been thrown around a lot, and it's not necessarily, people that are using it are not necessarily accurately a gastropub in my eyes.
Sure. Yeah. And ultimately the user experience is what defines it.
Right.
People will hear those terms and they'll be like, okay, I don't know what that is, but we'll go check it out.
Yeah.
And beer parlor that's a fun name. I always enjoyed that. And yeah, I think brew pub, you added brewing to the operation. How many years ago was that now?
I think I would say like 5 or 6. I think it might be going on closer to 7.
I know. I think the pandemic broke our brains as far as time goes. Add 2 years to whatever you think something is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that, I'd love to go back to the very beginning. So you just celebrated 17 years of operation and you outgrew 2 locations. Mm-hmm. So Audubon Park is your 3rd location and you've really settled in, and it's a lot of space. And
forever home.
Yes, good. I love that. So going back to 2005 when you opened shop in Winter Park, you were upstairs, what was Ballard and Coram, and how did that whole kind of turnover go?
Yes, so Ballard and Coram was a bar and a bakery. Mm-hmm. The bakery was downstairs and the bar was upstairs. And it was 2 sisters that operated it. One sister ran the bakery and one sister ran the bar. And
it sounds like a fairy tale, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's really fun.
Yeah. If you ever went to that bakery, though, I kind of miss some of those, the fudge supremes.
Oh.
I think I definitely added some pounds from being in that building
you
for those years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Between the beer and the fudge supremes. So the bakery, they thought that the bakery sister might leave the business. Mm-hmm. And they sat me down and another friend of mine who used to work for them. Mm-hmm. She ran the social when they were owners of the social as well. And they knew that we were friends and they really liked her. So they're like, you guys have some ideas how we can incorporate the downstairs and upstairs more. And then,
this was Josie.
It was Josie Fleury, yes. Who I talked to a lot these past few days.
That's so cool. Yeah, it was so great to see her the other week when she was in town.
Yeah, I missed her.
Yeah.
But long story short, I think the sisters kind of flip-flopped. Well, the bakery decided to stay, and then they just kind of said, hey, would you just want to buy the bar from us? And we're like, what? Like, what does that mean? I don't know. We never thought we would own a bar.
Yeah.
I was bartending there, but I never thought, actually the reason I started bartending there though was because I wanted to open a brewery. Eventually I started homebrewing in 2001, and, every avid home brewer is like, I'm going to open a brewery now.
Yeah.
It's my beer. All my friends love my beers.
The next logical step, right?
Yeah. I'm great at this.
Yeah.
This
you graduate instantly after doing it for a few years.
Yeah. And, yeah. Long
But
story short, I'm really glad I didn't start right away.
No, that makes sense.
That would have been not good beer.
Yeah.
But, so then, honestly, for years, people would say, like, how do you own a bar? Like, how do you start a bar? I'm like, I have no idea. You work for, Ashley and Hearst, and they basically give it to you on a silver platter. So.
Yeah. Because it was an already established bar, so it had kind of its following. It had a really great location. So you took it over
because the business, it was one address too. So So we just basically, they kept the license in their name, which super generous, because I don't think I would do that.
Sure. Yeah.
Myself. I wouldn't trust someone else to just
that's a lot of trust.
Run my beer and wine license, because that could jeopardize some of their other licenses.
Right.
If we did something we shouldn't have been doing.
That was back in the day when people trusted each other, handshake deals and that sort of thing. Yeah, that's
pretty much what it was.
Yeah.
And they let us make payments.
That's cool.
On the bar. And then Josie and her partner at the time, they decided to leave and go to Austin, Texas. So it was around 2007. Then shortly after that is when we started looking for a new spot. We found the place on Bennett Road.
That was, back in the day, it was Club Nowhere, spot.
Yes, that had a lot of history too. Oh, well, that first space had a lot of history as well.
Yeah.
In Winter Park. So
yes, let's talk about that, because that is where the name originated. Yes, kind of.
Well, yes and no. It was just, the space just kind of felt like Dan and Josie kind of came up with the name because it felt like you were in a brown cafe in Amsterdam, in like the red light district, essentially. Yeah, because it was one flight up, but you felt like you were in a basement. Instead.
It did have that basement feel. It was pretty incredible.
Yeah, exposed raptors and stuff like that. So that's kind of where the name came from. And
the two using red light twice. What
that was 100% Dan.
Okay.
Owens came up with that. I forget exactly the situation, but we had to file with Sunbiz to file a corporate document, to establish a corporation. And we were down to the wire. It had to be today. And we're like, what are we going to call ourselves? We have no idea. Yeah. And we liked Red Light, but I needed something else. We couldn't think of Red Light what? Red Light Bar. I just didn't, we couldn't, I hadn't thought about beer parlor yet. So, Yeah. And then Dan's like, Red Light. We're like, okay.
I love it.
And we just kind of did it on a whim.
That's so funny.
None of us thought it'd be around for 17 years at this point either. So
it's amazing, and it is a very memorable name, and a lot of people for shorthand just call it Red Light, but I think it stands out in its own way, and it makes me think of Red Light, Green Light, the game, and also it just it has that Duran effect, right? You're just sort of just double it, and then it's
that's kind of where it came from. It's just double it, like okay. Yeah,
not a bad idea. Yeah, it really worked out.
Yeah.
And I wonder, so back in 2005 when you started, you were just kind of figuring out what you wanted the bar to be. Did you have a vision for the bar? That was when craft beer was really kind of starting to gain popularity. People were getting a little more knowledgeable.
Yeah, we started out, we carried pretty much all craft beer in the beginning. I think we might have had a couple bigger beers for for a little bit, but I just really was diving deeper into beer, especially once I got kind of in the industry. Then the sales reps would bring me samples, and I just kind of like learning more and more and more, and it's really diving deep. And so that's kind of where Dan and Josie and I felt like they were wanting to do more music and stuff like that there, which I love doing that too. But I was like, I wanted to deep dive into the beer scene.
Yeah. So were there beer bars that you had been to that kind of inspired you and that sort of gave you ideas for how it should be?
100%. I always look back. I think it was in 2005. I went to the Brick Store for the first time in Decatur, Georgia, right outside Atlanta, and they're still a huge inspiration. I love those guys.
That's so cool. And they're still around.
They're still around. They started in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, I think. So they're very far ahead of their time. But
that's amazing.
There's 3 partners. I actually got to meet and hang out with one in Belgium one time. I went on a trip to Belgium and got to know him pretty well. So we still kind of stay in touch too. So
that's so cool. Yeah. And we traveled Belgium together.
We did. That was my first trip to Belgium. Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
How many times have you been to Belgium now?
Let's see. Like that one. 4 or 5.
All right.
Yeah.
And all of that, I mean, that experience was incredible. I mean, we were there, I think, 10 days and toured breweries, like sometimes multiple breweries a day.
Very unhealthily.
Yes, very. I mean, it was like a challenge. I think that...
Bus beers.
Yes, we were all up to the challenge, but it took a little recovery time afterwards. But it was so enlightening, and just seeing, especially like the Trappist operations, some which are not typically open to the public.
Yeah.
And I mean, that kind of experience, and obviously since you've repeated it, it's very informational and kind of world changing just to get outside of, our community here and bring some inspiration back and some knowledge.
Yeah, we went to Westmalle on our trip, and we just got in a brand new beer from Westmalle. Well, it's not a brand new beer; they just started releasing it, but we drank it together there at the cafe as the Westmalle Extra, which they only serve, I think, on draft at the cafe there. It's their low ABV beer. Mm-hmm. So they just released that in bottles. So I was telling people, our staff, just yesterday about our trip in 2012.
And you've been to Germany as well, multiple times?
Just really one time.
Okay.
I flew in and out of Germany on a trip to Belgium once, but toured Germany just one time.
We'll count it. We'll say twice.
Yeah. Well, Lufthansa flies direct from Orlando, so once you get to over there, it's pretty easy to jump on a train. So.
See, this is one of the many benefits of living in Orlando, is that you have this great international airport, and you can go places. You can go anywhere from here,
for the most part.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So you were in the Bennett Road location, and you grew kind of by more than double in space. You hosted some live events there, and just, I think, really kind of found your stride as, what you wanted to provide as that experience to the customer. What were some of the biggest lessons that you learned while you were in that Bennett Road location? Yeah.
Well, we did a lot of live music, and I think we did some really awesome shows, but I think we were always kind of struggling. I feel like we gave 2 groups of people a bad experience because we weren't necessarily a venue. Mm-hmm. Like you go to Will's Pub to see a show.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we were also kind of a neighborhood bar, but also we'd have these kind of national indie acts coming through that we needed to pay. So we had to charge a cover, and a lot of people didn't they just want to come and have a beer.
Yeah.
So I felt like and then people that are there want to see a show. There's other people like talking and yelling over the band.
It makes it tough for the regulars because they're like, especially if they have like company in town or something, and they're like, I'm going to take you to this place, and then they're like, oh wait, it's going to be a different night altogether.
Frodis and Leatherface are playing.
That was yeah.
So
I mean, it's worth it, for some of those things. And it's funny because, back in the day that was a venue. I saw Green Day there back in like 92
I know,
or whatever.
Will used to have that poster hanging up inside Will's for the longest time. And I would always joke. I said, that's got my address on it. Bacon used to come home.
Yeah. It was a packed show. It was a very different scene back then. And yeah, I mean, it was such a great spot.
That was like on their Kerplunk album tour, I believe.
It was.
So they were really not known.
No, they were not. Even though it was a packed house, it was like, they were selling out arenas just like a year or two later. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Do you remember who else was on that bill?
It was a local band called Denature. And members of Denature, or at least the bass player, is in the New Lows and Curtains. So still doing it. Yeah, lots of history.
Yeah.
And yeah, that transition to kind of this part of town, and then it was you were needing to find a new location, and the Weathermasters building that sat vacant in Audubon Park and is huge.
For a long time, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many years it was dormant, but
as long as I can remember. I mean, from what I heard from our current landlord it was pretty much empty since the 80s.
Really? That long? Yeah.
It was Weathermasters. Mm-hmm. The owner of Weathermasters passed away suddenly. And the wife basically was a hoarder, became a hoarder and was just storing massive amounts of stuff in there.
It's a lot of space to hoard.
Yeah.
I mean,
apparently it was
like packed. A hoarder's paradise.
Toward the end there, she was getting fined by the health department consistently.
That's a tough situation.
Yeah, if you looked in the windows, the front spaces were all office. Mm-hmm. And it was like floor to ceiling, like newspapers and just stuff like that. And it was just, pests.
I bet. So how much of that was cleared out before you were moving in? Did you basically have to do that?
We actually looked at the space, so it was already emptied and whitewashed.
Okay.
So
perfect.
Basically, she passed, and then I went to her nephew, and her nephew was like, I don't want to deal with this. So he kind of just sold it to our landlord. And the nephew went and cherry-picked, I think, a few things. Mm-hmm. Apparently, there was an old Cadillac that was parked in the back.
What?
For a long time, too. Huh. But the landlord and the contractor is actually the contractor who's building the kitchen out right now, was the contractor that gutted the space.
Oh, okay.
He said, in one of the desk drawers, they found a loaded handgun.
Oh, my God.
And had to call a police department to come pick it up. We're not going to touch that.
Wow.
It just looked like the business guy passed away and just they closed the doors.
Yeah.
Because, do you remember a long, long time ago, there were still work vans parked out front.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I think the city finally hauled them away. The tires just dry rotted. They just sat there on their rims. And I think the city finally just towed them.
That's so bizarre. And Weathermasters was air conditioning. It was like a local company that did that, right?
Yeah. So oddly enough, there was not a lot of air conditioning in that building.
Yes.
It was just the little front space. The rest was all warehouse space. So.
That's incredibly ironic.
Yeah.
And so the bay door that opens up in the back really allowed for kind of different things. With Redlight, you can open that up and have basically an open air experience. And you've added extra amounts of air conditioning in there now because the kitchen is going in. So it's very cool and comfortable in there.
Yeah. Well, one of our ACs pretty much died about almost a year ago. So we were trying to limp along, and honestly, we couldn't get an AC because they were just the supply chain,
everything. Mm-hmm.
So the guys we're working with, they're like, "Well, we actually have a smaller one that might work, but the heating element is too strong." Long story short, we basically just cut the heater out. I don't need the heater.
Yeah.
And so they were able to drop that unit in to help, and it's working.
It feels amazing in there now.
Yeah, it's working.
So if anybody was in there a year ago and was like, this is not the right temperature for me, it's great.
It's better now.
Yeah. And bring a sweater if you're prone to being cold.
Yes.
I don't know if it's that cold, but it's very comfortable. So Yeah. And obviously the big news being the kitchen that's going in.
Yes.
And everybody wants to know the date, but you never want to give a date because construction, right?
Yeah. I mean, we don't even have a date in mind. We're not even trying to play the game.
They don't need a date.
I'm just saying fall.
Fall's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And fall in Florida is very undefined. So,
That's true.
it starts feeling like fall in December. But
exactly.
Wishful thinking, sooner than later. I know you all are very ready for it.
It's moving along pretty well right now. So
we'll see. Knock on wood a little bit.
Exactly.
And Jess has been doing pop-ups at Redlight, so people are very familiar with her work. She is a brilliant chef.
She is.
And we just couldn't be more excited about Audubon Park and having that addition of her food as a regular thing. So thank you for facilitating that.
Anytime.
Yeah,
I mean, it was born out of the pandemic, out of quarantine.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
And so talk about that a little bit. The bars had kind of shut down.
Yeah. So we were shut down in 2020. They said we actually had a meeting with the head of DBPR at the time. It's the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. So they issue all the licenses for like brewing or alcohol sales.
Thank you for spelling out that acronym, because I always hear it
DBPR,
and I'm like,
Department of Business Professional Regulation.
Yeah, it's a good one to know.
Yeah. They also do like the kitchen licenses and food licenses and stuff like that. So he traveled around to different regions and had meetings at bars and breweries, and he basically said no one in 2020 is opening without a restaurant license. So all the breweries that already had restaurants in them or kitchens were able to be open for on-premise consumption, and we had to become a bottle shop.
Yeah. So that was for the entire year of 2020.
Yes.
Basically, there was a time that you were shut down because everything was shut down, and then reopening not as a bar at that point.
Right. And then, so Jess reached out to us about maybe just doing sandwiches or something at a commissary that we could resell and get us open and get them at bare minimum license, which I know a lot of friends did.
Sure.
And the more we kind of talked and the more my wife and I talked, we just kind of snowballed and just like, I think food is something we've always been missing. So instead of slap a Band-Aid on this situation, why don't we do it right? But, 2 years later, we're finally getting there.
It's no easy.
Long story short, they said, no one's opening up in 2020. And then like literally like 2 months later, the governor opened up everything. And a bunch of people went off and spent $2,000 on like the food license.
And that was it.
And now none of them use it.
But on the flip side of that, you are recognized as a place that provides a quality experience, like on every level. So it makes sense that with the food thing that you're not going to want to just phone it in. Like you're creating the full experience so that people can spend a full night there. And I mean, it's very exciting. You've to fill kind of that time of having food. You've done a lot of food trucks, and how has that whole thing kind of gone and managing that? Food
trucks. I mean, most of the time that's great. It's just hard to, be consistent. Sometimes it's not their fault.
Sure.
Other factors like their generator's not working or their transmission went out or, something like that. Or they get really popular and decide to open up a brick and mortar.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
we lose them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and that's sort of the natural progression for a lot of food truck owners, right?
Yeah. So, which is great.
Yeah.
But then we're like, oh, well, now who do we have? Like, because that was like what our Friday night was built around, So
yeah.
So it just makes sense.
Yeah. It was a good kind of, to fill the time and make sure that there's food available because
we're still going to have food trucks.
Oh, you are?
Pop-ups,
that's awesome.
So we're not stopping.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, just like I'm not going to have a pizza oven. We're not doing pizzas. So if a pizza pop-up wants to come, they can do it,
Yeah.
She's like, I'm not going to cook Sri Lankan food. So Ceylon Hut is more than welcome to come set up,
It's so nice to have that variety too. Now that Juniors has closed and that the future of that space is kind of undetermined. restaurant options right where you are kind of limited. You've got Sushi Lola's, but they get packed a lot. So it's sort of like if you're hanging out, having some drinks, then, it's going to make a lot of sense to just have things there. Yeah. So that's really cool that you guys are doing that. And another thing that you guys do really, really well, obviously, is your events. You always just kind of pack the parking lot and fill the place. You've got Spring Fling, Galentine's, Redlight Saves Christmas, Oktoberfest, the Star Wars. You just sponsored the movie, and A New Hope played in the field.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
Which we're going to do more movies. We just need to get back on track with that.
It's a great setup. I mean, obviously summer is not the time to do anything else.
Yeah, it was kind of hard. I mean, because I started so late because the sun was up, longer.
And we lucked out with that night. I mean, it's just, you never know. I mean,
as we hear thunder.
Yes.
Right now.
This is podcast. the first episode that we're recording indoors with air filters around us. But yeah. And obviously, Zwanza. Am I saying that right?
Swansea.
Swansea?
Yeah.
The Cantillon day of celebration.
Yes, which we'll be hosting again this year. So we're excited about that.
That is very exciting. And so 50 bars in the U.S. get chosen every year to do Swansea.
I think it's actually 50 places in the world.
50 in the world.
Yeah, I don't think the U.S. list is smaller than that. I could be wrong.
That
don't
sounds...
Don't quote me on that.
Okay, all right. Either I'm right or you're right.
We can edit that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember. I don't remember.
Yeah. We might have to loop your voice in and say, yes, 50 in the States.
Yes.
But either way, that's a huge honor to be hosting that. And let's talk about that event. How does that go down?
So, Cantillon in Brussels, they are a lambic producer. So, anybody who's familiar with lambic, it is a spontaneously fermented beer and has to be made in that region in Belgium.
Because of the air quality, right? It's an open, that spontaneous fermentation for people that haven't seen it before. It's
so it's whatever microflora in the air lands on the wort, and that's what ferments it. And they ferment it in oak barrels and oak foeders up to 3 to 4 years, and they blend those together to make beers, and they add fruit and different things. So this year's special, so Cantillon would make this beer once a year called Swansea beer, and they would sell it out of the brewery in bottles, and they started seeing it on eBay back then for 4 or 5 times what they were selling it, and they're like, why are these people making all this money off of our product?
That's such a bummer, isn't it?
Yeah, so they decided to only keg it, and then they hand select where it goes. Mm-hmm. And the whole idea is to get as much of that beer into as many people as possible.
So you have to be there that day, and you have it where it's a ticketed event.
Yeah, so the tickets are only for a pour of that beer. Mm-hmm. So we have one 30-liter keg that we portion out and sell tickets for 6 ounces of said beer. But then we have lots of other Cantillon, beer on draft, and other awesome beers that is just kind of free for all.
And people drive from all over, because sometimes the nearest location, I think one of the years it was like the closest to here was like DC. That was the next closest bar.
I think this year at the Brick Store in Atlanta.
Okay, nice.
Has it, so.
Yeah.
There used to be 2 locations in Florida, but the last couple of years they've only selected one. So
it's very exclusive, and those beers are very amazing. I mean, it's such a cool place to tour as well.
Yes, we went there on our trip.
Yeah.
So this year's Swansea beer is lambic with black pepper.
Okay. Congolese
black pepper.
That sounds delicious.
And they're donating proceeds from the beer to a gorilla refuge in Congo.
And do representatives come from Cantillon? Have they visited?
Not to Redlight.
Okay.
I know they come over to the States sometimes, but we're not cool enough yet.
You will be
Yeah.
someday. Well, I remember one time you brought over, was it the owner of Bavik?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And, came here to your house.
I mean, what an amazing, and he was so friendly. He was very excited about our chickens.
Yeah, he was very enamored with the chickens. I remember that.
Was.
He was loving it.
Yeah, yeah.
What was the occasion though? What were you guys hosting here? It wasn't a fancy party.
No, I think we were just doing a dinner party then. Yeah, and he happened to come over, and that was really cool. Just meeting somebody that's brewing at that level, and just like that's a household name. They make great beers.
Yeah. And
also, speaking of great beers, you brew the Audubon Bitter, which is currently one of my favorite beers.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
Ever. Yeah, and people rave about the Kolsch. I am a big fan of the Kolsch as well.
Thank you. Hey.
What are some other beers that you're doing that you're excited about right now?
Yesterday and today, we're actually brewing French Pils.
Ooh.
French-style Pilsner.
That's exciting. Is this your first go at French-style Pilsner?
Yeah, it is, yeah. So it's a style that comes from Alsace and Loire Valley.
Okay.
It's very similar.
These are all just words to me because it sounds nice. Yeah.
Right. It's right next to Germany.
Okay.
It's very, like, Alsace is, it's where like Kronenberg 1664 is brewed. Like the capital of Alsace is Strasbourg.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It's very German. They grow a lot of Gewürztraminer grapes and Riesling and stuff like that there. It's also the hop growing region in France.
Okay.
So we use French hops. And the difference between, say, a German Pils and a French Pils is they brew it in the same kind of methods. They use decoction mashing, but in France they add corn to the beer, and a German would never do that. So
because they have the purity laws, right?
Yeah.
The standards.
Yes.
So what does that do to the beer? Like what kind of?
It lightens it up a little bit.
Okay.
Just makes it a little lighter body.
So when will that one be ready for sampling?
It'll be a few weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have a name for that one?
We're kind of toying around. I think we're just going to call it French Florida Pils.
Nice.
So, because all the grain we use came from South Carolina, and French Florida was actually what they called the region from like the lowlands, like all the way down through the Florida Panhandle, and it was actually French territory for a significant portion of time.
I've never heard that. That's really cool.
They basically kind of defeated the Spanish for a hot minute and controlled that area, and then the Spanish came back and kicked them back out. But
I love how so many of your beers have a story behind it as well. Like,
I think it's what kind of got me into a lot of the beer.
Is that right?
Well, when we first opened too, there wasn't a lot of American craft beer to be had,
or like Sierra Nevada,
right? Or that we could even get in Florida.
Yeah.
So we always had a very heavy import element, and I feel like a lot of those beers have great stories. I think that's what kind of sucked me into a lot of it.
That's so cool. That's a great thing to be influenced by. I mean, yeah, because there's so much history often with those places, especially, I mean, some of the places that we saw in Belgium have been there for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
They have it all really dialed in, and it's world class. So to learn from those places.
We were in just a bar, I think, that was like a few hundred years old.
Yes. Yeah. What an amazing thing to be inspired by and to bring back to this community. And I think that, people, when I talk about Redlight to other people in the neighborhood, like, they appreciate it for exactly what that is. You know what I mean? Like that, it's such a unique place, and it's so wonderful. And you really, everybody there cares about what that experience is and the quality of it. And yeah, I mean,
thank you.
You guys are killing it.
Thanks.
You're really,
We're trying.
really,
We're trying.
Well, you're succeeding as well. And I saw that you did get mentioned in the Eaters article out of Miami.
Yeah,
for how to eat through Orlando in one day.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
They just kind of mentioned us for drinks, but hopefully next time around we'll have food.
I know. I think they probably wanted to do that, and they were just just under the wire to not.
We weren't ready.
Yeah.
Soon.
But that was such a nice mention to see that. So now that you've been in operation for 17 years, obviously been very busy growing the business and adding brewing and kind of learning the business of all of these things. And now you're adding a restaurant to the business. Is there more to the vision of Redlight that, you'll be adding later on? I mean, I can't think of what that would be, but
I think the only thing that I would like to see happen is we want to expand the brewing outside of the building. Just having a bigger facility somewhere else off-site, and keeping this as like our tasting room. Just having a warehouse somewhere where we can get a bigger brewing system, because we're really kind of maxed out that space. We can't really fit anymore. Like we can't fit a larger brewing system in there.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So
how much are you brewing now, like barrels per month or however you quantify?
I mean, it does vary.
Sure.
We're basically brewing as much as we can.
Yeah.
Like we just can't keep up. Certain brands, like we want to keep our side pull pills on all the time, and we just looked like, oh, we got 4 kegs left. Like, what? We brewed a lot of that beer.
It's nice having that kind of demand too. I mean, I totally see it.
We didn't distribute any of that. It all stayed in house. So
that's amazing.
It came out of our largest fermenter too. So it's the most we can possibly make of something. So
yeah,
probably just takes like weeks to months to make. So then we're like, all right, well, we'll run out for a little while.
Yeah, that's the challenge, right? So if you expanded the operation to another spot, do you have like your sight set on where that would be, or how that would, is that still a work in progress?
Yeah, I mean, focus on the kitchen right now. I mean,
that makes one thing at a time.
We won't be able to do that right now. I mean, honestly, we were looking at that during quarantine, because we were gonna try to put in some more tanks in Redlight right now, and we kind of came to a realization, like, well, where are we going to store all those kegs once it's out of the tanks? And we're like, oh yeah, we don't have our cooler's not big enough for that either. So like every solution created another set of problems.
Of course.
So then we kind of shifted gears. Once we started talking to Jess, it kind of made more sense to focus on the kitchen. So
yeah, it's amazing how much space you have, and yet like you manage to fill it. It's eventually kind of evolving, and it's like you've always carried a ton of beer. Like your beer selection has always been super impressive, and it just gets more so every year. How many taps do you have in house there?
24 draft lines.
24 draft lines. And are they called taps, or am I incorrectly saying that?
Yeah.
No, okay.
You can call them taps.
It's interchangeable. All right. Yeah. I think part of it, understanding sort of the language of it, and like, I think that over the years people have become more comfortable with it, just like craft beer in general, and finding what they're into. It's like there's something for everybody, and a lot of brewers are kind of focusing on beer flavored beer rather than doing like the IPAs, and
right.
I mean, people are still doing those things, and it's great, but
you're starting to see a lot more beer flavored beer coming back out again, where it used to just be crazy fruits or crazy dessert inspired.
Yeah. And what do you think it is that has sort of changed that landscape? Like, people are just, is it kind of just that session experience of just like having a few beers and not like getting too crazy with it? Or
I just think those styles, it's not sustainable. I mean, you can't keep drinking those.
That's really true. Yeah.
5,000 calorie
in
a glass beers. I mean, you should not be continuously drinking those beers.
Absolutely.
So I mean, I think this is kind of, those get people hooked on craft beer. It's like, oh, what is this? This is crazy. This tastes like creme brulee. I love creme brulee.
Yeah.
But you don't want to eat creme brulee every day.
You do not.
So
no. I mean, I'm sure somebody out there does, but
well,
no.
I'm sure somebody does. You should not.
You should not. No.
It should be special. But I don't know why I brought up creme brulee. That's just what popped in my head. But and honestly, as like just from a pure business standpoint, it's like, do you want someone to come and have one glass of beer for $10-15, or maybe they'll have 2 or 3 $7 beers. So
exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and most people do want that experience because it's a very social thing. I mean, I can't even count how many people I've met at Redlight specifically, how many best friends I've made just by going to a place, and that's sort of the thing. It's like that atmosphere, it's such a positive social atmosphere, and it really does kind of set the tone for the community too. I think that what you bring to Audubon Park is so huge just in that regard, because people know it. Yeah, totally. And thank you. I mean, I see it and hear it from all sorts of people, and you have a very loyal following. You have the Citizens program. Are you still doing that? I love the passports.
We kind of stopped doing the passports.
Okay.
We're reevaluating how we're going to do it. It was too hard to keep up because the beer landscape is ever evolving, and there was half the book we don't even have available to us anymore. Yeah. So we're in talks with digitizing it.
Cool.
So we can edit it a lot easier.
Yeah, at the time it was like such a novel approach to gaining beer knowledge and becoming like sort of part of this like club. Yeah. Because you had these what really looked like passport books, and it had the Redlight logo on it. And so going through each page had a different like list of styles of beer, and then people could rate it and comment on it. So everybody sort of did their own like review of these beers and learning about it.
Yeah, it was 3 booklets, and it was like 99 beers. It was actually my former partner, Richard, who came in after Dan and Jesse left a little while later. Mm-hmm. And he left, what year was that? Like 2015, maybe? But it was really his idea. And we wanted to have some sort of like, you hear about places that have like beer clubs, and you drink X amount of beer, and you get your picture on the wall, or like a bar tab.
Or they'll like hang your mug, right? Yeah. That's a thing too.
We were like, how do we do something that we give, benefits longer than just like a tab and like your face on the wall. So he kind of figured this thing out. And so we host different events for our citizens and stuff all the time, which we're kind of been slacking. So if any citizens are listening to this, I apologize. We are working on it.
Again, I think
We've
the
had
pandemic.
A lot on our plates.
Yeah, you obviously have. So. Yes, and I'm sure
we're trying. We have ideas.
Yes. I'm sure that your citizens understand. How many citizens are there roughly?
That's actually a great question.
Yeah.
I do not know the answer.
Okay, all right. We'll get back to you on that one.
But we have a diehard group that still meets like once a week.
They still do?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I know part of the experience sometimes can be like people will bring their bottles for kind of sharing, and they're also, ordering from the bar. I love, by the way,
you don't see that as often anymore.
No.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That sort of has changed.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that might have been like over with the pandemic.
Yeah.
Now that you say that, I don't see it as often anymore.
It's curious, the things that as the dust settles, we're like, that's just not a thing anymore.
I mean, I guess it does happen. I think it's not as often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the ordering system that you have, I know some people are not comfortable with the QR code thing. I think it's wonderful because you don't have to break from the conversation. Yeah. You're visiting with somebody, and instead of having to get up and go to the bar, or somebody coming to the table, which it's like tough to be staffed to do all of that, it's like you can just scan the QR that's on your table, pick out what you want. All the descriptions are on there. Anything that's 86 that's out is like not on the app.
We can turn it off right away. So
it's amazing.
You're not misordering or ordering something we don't have anymore.
Because so many times, when you look at a beer list and you're like, oh, that's exactly what I want. And then it comes time to order, and it's like,
oh, we're out of that.
We haven't 86'd it on the menu, but we're out. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're printing, 30 paper menus every day for just our draft selection.
That's a lot per day on cardstock, on that
Yeah.
thick paper. Yeah.
And then bottle lists once a week. I think it was like 7 to 10 pages in the book, maybe double printed. So I don't know. I love the QR code.
I do too.
And we can put way more information on each beer. We have staff tastings once a week, and we've been going through a few times a month and checking out some of our vintage beers to kind of see how they're holding up. And we'll actually write tasting notes with the date on there, so people can, if they're looking at that beer, like, oh, they tasted it like 2 weeks ago.
That's so
what it tasted
cool.
like.
Yeah. I mean, you would never be able to put that level of detail in on a paper menu.
Right.
So yeah, it's funny the things that the pandemic and the shutdown kind of created as opportunities. Do you feel like your package store business, like your takeout, has increased?
Yeah, it's here to stay, I think, for sure. We just installed like new shelves recently.
Cool.
Just to make it look a little nicer. We still just had like some of our extra beer hall tables.
You were making it work with what you had, right? Yeah.
So now we're like, oh, well, I think we're going to keep doing this. So I had some shelves installed on the wall. Looks a bit nicer.
Yeah, I think it makes so much sense because, you know where to go for the best selection of beer, and that includes the takeout as well. Yeah. And your wines are off the charts amazing as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of our wine selection. A lot of people don't, think about it, but
it can be an afterthought, right? Because it's not the main thing that you're known for, but you do have some pretty good NA selections for people who are not consuming alcohol, but then
NA is a very fastly growing segment in the industry too. NA beer specifically.
Yeah, especially people that do have health considerations, so they still want the experience, and it's really not advisable for them to be consuming too much alcohol. So it's great that you have those things. And
you might know someone.
I do. I know. I do know. I'm very close with somebody like that.
Well, I was thinking about yourself as well for a while.
And me. That's true. I know. I'm glad that I was able to graduate from the NA back to, because I would miss it. It really is a wonderful.
What I see though happening a lot more with the NA beers too, it's not that people are off the sauce completely. I think it's just moderating their consumption and still wanting to hang out.
That makes sense.
Like we're hanging out, like you just got a beer. Oh man, I kind of feel like I should stop drinking, but I want to keep hanging out. So they get an NA beer, and then they can hang out for a little bit longer. Like, oh, I feel better. I'll get another beer now.
And they're like rehydrating a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And,
so people are like kind of switching off and on. It's not just people that don't drink alcohol anymore.
See, that's such an expert tip, right there.
I was just at a conference, and one of the segments was all about NA beers. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, there's a brewery in Melbourne, like Palm Bay area, I think, and all he brews is 100% NA beers.
Wow.
And he had his like Irish stout for all of us to try, and it was really good. I drank like 2 of them in the session because I thought this was great. Although you can't call it stout because it's not considered beer. It's
technically,
I think it could Irish dark beverage or something like that. I forget what he called it.
Beverage.
It was something
I think
funny.
That's perfect. I think you can wrap it up with that. Yeah,
but it was great.
Great.
Oh, I drank a bunch of them. They're great.
Well, and that's one of the big things that's changed in the industry, obviously, too, is that like NA beers in the past were terrible.
Yeah.
You had like Sharp and what was
Caliber? That was Guinness's one.
I never even tried that one.
Oh, it's so bad.
Yeah.
And then like O'Doul's,
that was the other one. Yeah. And so that felt like punishment, drinking one of those. As opposed to now that, these beers are done really well. Yeah. And you don't necessarily miss the alcohol, but you get that experience, that pub experience.
Yeah.
So that's a whole like kind of extra industry that is still sort of growing, and people are getting more familiar with that.
Yeah. It's wild.
It really is. I mean,
we brewed an NA beer, Yeah, it was a low alcohol beer. It was like 0.5%,
Wow.
which would be classified as NA technically. But it was very bad timing. We did it. It came out right before the pandemic.
Oh no.
Quarantine. We had it, so I don't think people were coming and getting a crowler of NA beer to go. That wasn't really a market. I think we ended up dumping a bunch of it.
Oh, that's so sad.
So I want to try it again, but
yeah. Did that one have a name?
I don't remember what we called it, to be honest with you.
I have to bring that all back. I think there's a lot of good opportunities.
I have it written down, but I don't remember what it's called now.
Yeah. Call it O'Doul's 2.0.
Yeah.
No.
I think they might not like that one.
That's a terrible idea.
Yeah. I have no idea what we called it.
But yeah, I think that is just really one of those things that like there's so much opportunity there, because especially, after being in quarantine, a lot of people they really need to get out there again. And you guys have always been super safe about everything, which I very much appreciate.
Yeah, we closed ourselves down there for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
We were already shut ourselves down because we're like,
yeah,
doesn't feel safe.
Yeah, pre-vaccinations, it was just like there was a lot of unknowns. It was very scary, and it was hard to know what the right thing was. And it was kind of like, being too cautious. What's the worst that can come out of that? Is that you're safer. And you guys did a really great job with that. I think that was important to a lot of the community as well, because once you did open back up, it's like we felt safe to go there and we could sit outside, and you've expanded outdoor options for sitting. So it's great. And the high ceilings, obviously you've got great circulation in there. So
better circulation now than new AC.
Better. I know. I just yeah, I think I'm going to go there right after this interview, in fact, because
I have to go back there.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll both go. That really works out. Yeah. Perfect. Well, Brent, I wanted to thank you so much for everything that you do, for being here today.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, indeed. And I love that you call me that. It is a title that I hold because I'm a volunteer, and I am the board president of the Audubon Park Garden District's Main Street organization, which not many people know about because I don't tell many people, but because you call me...
That's why I like to put it out there.
Yeah.
Because you should introduce yourself.
Thank you.
When you're in Audubon Park, you should introduce yourself as...
It's true.
President Michael Lothrop.
I should have maybe the sash, like the mayor's sash.
That's a great idea.
Mr. President on it. That's a good thought. I like it.
Christmas is coming up.
That's true, it is. And Redlight Saves Christmas is coming up. So we're looking forward to all of the events. And you do have an Oktoberfest event coming up. I think this will be out before that.
Okay, yes, September 17th.
17th, Saturday the 17th.
Yeah.
That's going to be awesome.
I have a band, big polka band.
They played last year, yes?
Same band, yeah.
They were great.
Yeah, they're coming back. It'll be great. Chef Jess will be cooking up some sausages.
Heck yeah. It's always such a big event. Like I love Oktoberfest just in that like everybody comes out for it. Like it's always such a great time, especially with the live music element too.
Yeah, the band is great. Like last year was the first time we had them, and I was like, oh man, we've been missing this for sure. This is great.
Yep, it leveled it up. It really did.
Yeah, we're a little worried. We have some competition with our good friends in a neighboring neighborhood.
Sideward?
Yeah.
Neighboring neighborhood.
Neighborhood. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we didn't realize that we both are like, we're doing it in the same day. Should have talked about that.
But people can pub crawl. I mean,
So
plenty of people are going to do that.
I want to look into seeing if we can get some sort of discount with like Lime or scooters, whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Whatever brand of scooters out there right now.
They do that with like the discount code
like
for events.
Yeah. So we just get people zipping back and forth.
Because you just get on that Bumby sidewalk and just go straight.
Yeah, the bike lane over there, it's perfect.
And I love all the collaborations and all of the, I mean, obviously Sideward is Mandy and Garrett, and Mandy was at Redlight for many years.
Yeah, she was our manager for a long time, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you all are like family, and you have,
for sure.
Just this bond that is really sweet and really wonderful, and you're both doing such killer beers.
They're awesome.
I'm so excited for both of you
Yeah.
that, you have this going on and this synergy.
Yeah. So hope we can capture some of that synergy that day.
I'm sure. Do they have similar start times too?
I'm not sure what time they're starting.
Okay.
We're starting at 2. I'm not sure
Okay.
what time they're starting. We're doing 2 to 10.
2 to 10. Good to know.
But I'm not sure what time they're starting at. You say that. I feel like they started a little earlier last year.
Mm-hmm.
They might have done like noon or something.
I think so too. Yeah. But there's plenty of hours in the day to visit both. And I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be so cool.
Actually, if they do start early, maybe I can try to zip over there for a minute too.
See, yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta coordinate that with them. Get them to start earlier.
Yeah.
Nice. Good.
Sounds good.
It's a good brainstorm.
Yeah.
Well, Brent, thank you again.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon. Hello APGD, a neighborhood podcast, is brought to you in part by Stardust Video and Coffee, Audubon Park's beloved neighborhood cafe, bakery, bar, and meeting place, located at 1842 East Winter Park Road. We are also sponsored by Redlight Beer Parlor and Brewery. Founded in 2005, Redlight is widely known as the source for world-class imports and microbrews, a wide selection of natural wines, plus award-winning beers brewed in-house. A full kitchen is in the works with an amazing menu by Chef Jess Tantalo, so stay tuned for that. Located at 2810 Corinne Drive, please check out Redlight for all things beer and wine, and soon food. Our theme song is by Christopher Pierce, and special thanks goes to Trey Hester for mixing the episode and for all of his help in making this podcast a reality. We do hope you enjoyed this episode. If so, please click subscribe and leave a review if you'd like. We'll see you next time.